Welcome to Sustainable in the City, where Nashville sustainability champions take the spotlight. Join Urban Green Lab and Zero Waste Nashville as we dive deep into the stories of everyday Nashvillians. We'll chat with your neighbors, coworkers, and fellow community members about the small sustainable actions that are making a big impact on Nashville. From reducing waste to planting trees, our guests will share their stories about the benefits, barriers, and motivators behind everyday choices. Tune in and be inspired by the power of individual action. This is Sustainable in the City.
Welcome back to Sustainable in the City, the podcast. My name is Allie Omens. I'm the Zero Waste Program Coordinator for Metro Nashville Waste Services. We are a division of the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County, and we provide education and outreach to Nashvillians to reduce, reuse, recycle, and compost their waste.
And I am Karissa Hampton. I am the Sustainable Households Manager with Urban Green Lab. We are a Nashville-based nonprofit that teaches communities to live sustainably. With education in mind, last episode we actually left off with some sustainability tips. I remember, Allie, you mentioned that you were going to go ahead and talk to those around you about composting. How's that going?
Thanks for asking, Karissa. Well, first off, my mom was delighted to be mentioned in our podcast. And I had a really nice time talking to her about how the composting service has gone. If you've not listened to our first episode, I mentioned that my mom, who lives in San Diego, has been participating in a curbside composting program. And it was great to talk to her about how it's been going. They have definitely been attracting more flies and other smelly things now that it's becoming summer, the summer months. But overall, she's really happy to have a way to keep her food scraps out of her trash, and I look forward to continuing to ask her those questions and help her along the way as she experiences maybe some barriers to what that can be like. And what about you, Chris? I think you mentioned that shopping local was your tip.
Yeah, I started with just finding out where the local farmers markets are and where these local shops where they are practicing sustainability in their shops and in their workplace. And I honestly just started to put reusable bags near the door to just motivate me to go out, shop locally, and to bring home fresh goods.
Awesome. And to transition us into a little bit of what we're going to talk about today in our episode, going back to curbside composting, actually, what I just said that my mom is doing. While she has been participating out in San Diego, we, for those of you that don't know, have had a curbside composting pilot program right here in Nashville to see what it can be like for 750 households in Nashville to experience curbside composting. It's been a really fascinating experience. I'm a part of a team that's been running this program since October of 2023, and we've had 750 amazing households that have been with us. They've started to separate out their food scraps from their trash and leave it in a little bucket at the curb, all nice and cute there. And as part of participating in the program, they received the free curbside composting service and also agree to participate in surveys and focus groups that help us understand how they're experiencing this new service, help us understand their barriers, benefits, and motivators to composting. And we've heard so many amazing stories. It's been really great for us to have that time to listen to how people are experiencing the program. We've heard so many things from people that have kids at home, being able to teach their kids about composting. Someone mentioned that their kids call the bucket their special bucket when they put in their little food scraps, and that's so delightful. Some other people have changed their cooking habits. They cook fish on different days of the week because they want to cook their fish the night before the compost bin is going out the next day, so it keeps things less smelly. It's just been so fascinating. And our guest here today is actually a participant in Nashville's Food Scraps Pickup Pilot Program, Ivan Ruth. And Ivan, I met you as part of the focus group process, as part of being in a focus group. And your story stood out to me, along with many other stories, but your story in particular of how you experienced being excited about the curbside composting program and having to help your family along with experiencing that same excitement. And we're so excited to have Ivan Ruth here as our guest in the studio, and can't wait to hear more about how you've been experiencing the program and how you've been experiencing curbside composting in Nashville.
Thank you for having me, ladies. It's interesting actually to be here and to talk about this subject, because I've been seeing a lot of people talking about their food habits and their cooking habits, and this program actually helped my household put a little small footprint into us helping out our planet.
And we're so glad that you participated, that you applied. I guess I should also add that the 750 households that we've been working with, everyone applied, and we ended up selecting households from across Nashville. But it's been so interesting through the focus groups when I heard your story, to hear how when other people sit in the focus group, they can hear you talk about what it's like to interact with your family members. And I could see people kind of nodding their heads along and being right there with you. So being able to have you here with us on Sustainable in the City to share your learnings with a listener base across a podcast and just help people understand that it's that it's okay, that even though you personally may experience a lot of the benefits and motivations behind curbside composting, that maybe your family isn't immediately right there with you, and that's okay. It doesn't mean anything's wrong. It just, it's just part of it.
Yeah, welcome to the show, Ivan. I'm really excited to dive into this conversation. I am also in the compost pilot, and I know that, the experience can vary house to house, and so I'm really excited to get into this. So let's get started on your sustainability journey. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Well, my journey started like everyone else's journey starts. I was on Facebook scrolling, doing nothing. And I happened to see that. So I looked into it, read it. It was like, okay, that sounds interesting. Then I jumped off there. Then I got into Google and I typed in, what is composting? And then I read about what compost was. Then went back to it and looked at it again. It's like, okay. And so how they were looking for volunteers, household volunteers. And I was like, that's something we could possibly do. And it's free. Mm-hmm. So, okay, cool. So I signed up for it, got an email, received a little package, gave out clear instructions on what you can and cannot compost, what goes in and everything. And I just started. It was difficult for me because I don't come from that background. I was raised in a house of chefs, of cooks. So just like any other cook, you watch Jamie Oliver, Gordon Ramsay, Frugal Gourmet, Yan Can Cook, whoever. Once they finish cutting off the tips of the carrots and they peel their garlic and they take off the sheds of the onions, they throw them right in the trash. Mm-hmm. There is no bowl where all the scraps go and they compost it. It goes right in the trash. And that's how I grew up, watching professional cooks cook. That's how my grandfather cooked. So this was the whole different kind of thing of actually changing my cooking habits, having a little small bowl beside the cutting board, putting little tidbits in that bowl, and when you finish, dumping that bowl into the compost bucket. It helps keep the kitchen a little tidier, feeding the dog a little less. But it helped keep things of that nature neat and organized, pretty much. To help your mom out with that smell, if she puts paper towels. I found if you wipe up juice or milk or spilled grease, something like that, the paper towels go in there. It cuts down on the smell.
Very smart. I'll have to tell her.
That smell was an issue in my household. My kids wouldn't go to it. They wouldn't use it because every time they open it up, the smell would be the first thing that gets them. And my 9-year-old daughter would be like, I'm not touching that thing. Mm-hmm. Okay, so she'd give me her play to it. After a while, when the smell dissipated, it was like, okay, it's not bad. The dog actually smells worse. So let's go ahead and do it. It was a I don't want to say a challenge, but it was a little a habit. You got to get into the habit of doing it, repetitive, and talking to them about where that food goes and when you put it in the trash, where it goes. So every now and then we have to go out past the landfill, and I show my kids that's where 2 weeks of trash went. But now we do a little differently, so you can see actually a difference in our household as far as how much trash is going out and how much actually food is going out. We actually waste less food because now we notice we're getting rid of the stuff we don't need. So it's fresh vegetables now. buying it that day, cooking it that day, hitting the farmer's market on a Saturday, cooking it that on a Sunday, and just using those fresh vegetables instead of all the processed stuff and everything. And the composting thing, that actually helped, like I say, keep the house kind of a little organized because we know where trash is going, we know where this is going. But I like the process of everything running so smoothly.
Now, before you were participating in the composting program, what kinds of foods did you find yourself wasting? You mentioned the example of cooking before watching cooking shows. Can you provide some examples for what your typical food waste kind of makeup was?
Everything. you don't compost. You throw everything. The shrimp peelings, onion peelings, whatever peelings you want to peel. It all gets thrown in the trash. I was born and raised in Washington, D.C. Never exposed to composting whatsoever. So whatever we cooked, trash. Leftovers. That's changed in our household also. 3-day-old leftovers. You make a big pot of chili. Second day, it tastes better. It's settled in. Third day, okay, cool. Fourth day, you might be pushing it. Fifth day, you might need some Pepto. Things of that nature. Once you get rid of it, usually it would just take the pot and you scrape the pot into the trash can. Mm-hmm. And that was it. Wash your pot and keep on moving. Now it's that whole thing of, now it's been in here long enough, all right. It goes to compost. And that extra food goes there instead of going straight into the trash. Having that atmosphere of, okay, I know that I'm going to cook such and such and such. All right, cool. Everything's playing out. My scraps are taken care of. So the whole process of putting anything in a compost is brand new to me and my family. I don't know about anybody else who they were doing when they was growing up, but my granddaddy didn't save shrimp peelings and stuff like that unless you're making a fish stock or something, something of that nature. But peelings and stuff like that, they were just thrown away. And like I said, I watched that over years of watching. I grew up watching television, and the food cooks. And when they cook, you see them chop up whatever. It's a trash can sitting there. Nothing's saved for the environment.
There's something really powerful about what is shown on TV or what's shown in mass media and what cues we take, subconsciously or not. There's some kind of level setting that happens when you see celebrities or you've mentioned some of the cooking shows, and when they or when you say, oh, I want to cook like them, well, what they're doing is, like you've said, they're putting all their scraps straight into the trash. So you just think, well, that's how they do it, so that's how I'm going to do it.
So was it a big change for you and your family to adopt composting into your life?
Yes, it was a big change. It wasn't something that I grew up with or my wife grew up with. So composting was new to all of us. So we all had to get involved and get used to the idea of something different. Taking your plate and scraping it into buckets of scraping to the trash can. The little seeds and things of that nature that you would generally just throw away in the trash, eggshells, your chicken bones, just those things that we take for granted of the trash. It goes in the trash and we don't think about it. And you don't think about where it goes, how it affects anything. But to know that you're putting something in a bucket and it's being used, it might take some time, but it's being used. That whole process, anything new to you is going to take a little time to get used to. And when you have small kids, it takes them either longer to get used to it, unless you try to make it like a game or something like that. Make it fun for everyone. Adults like games too. I'm a big kid. So.
That's true. I think before I actually started with the compost pilot, a lot of those scraps from like carrots that I was peeling and potatoes and all kinds of berries I was giving to my bunny. I actually have a bunny in the basement that I like to feed all those little scraps to. But obviously I'm not feeding my leftovers to my bunny. And so when we actually started to compost, it was easier than I expected to incorporate it into my household. However, I saw my children having the same, I guess, tension that I did when others would come over to our house and we were having a big party, and my son's like, make sure you put it in the compost bucket. And I was just like, are you mocking me right now? And he was just like, I don't know how else to bring it up unless I make it a joke. He's like, I really want them to compost it, but it's not this normal thing that, we talk about. And so I just really appreciated him, like, finding a way
to make it funny.
to make it something that he brought it up no matter the way he did it. And so it's been very interesting. My kids, scraping their plate, if they even scrape their plate that night, it's been another step that I have to teach my youngest, but they're definitely getting the hang of it, and it's a part of life. And now when I go, to other places, I look around for, like, where am I supposed to put my food scraps?
Yeah, you notice that when you go out in public. Some places have them, and some places you're looking around like, okay, I guess everything going in the same bin.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Actually, when you start composting, it makes you more aware of the type of businesses that you're frequenting. And like you say, going to local mom and pop stores, you get to see that local activity in the community, but you get to see how they get rid of their stuff. Mm-hmm. I actually had a conversation with one restaurant owner. They asked him, the food's good. What you do with your scraps? He's like, man, scraps are scraps. I knew right then and there, you ain't composting nothing. Yeah. If scraps are scraps, you ain't composting anything. But in that conversation, I wasn't trying to convince him to compost. I was saying, this is what I do in my house with my stuff. And after about 20 minutes of talking, he was like, you know what? We got some stuff here that we ain't really got to throw away. And then he said it. I'm going to find an organization that'll take this food. Mm-hmm. So he might be calling y'all, I don't know. I don't know who he's going to call. But he was like, he's going to find somebody to take his scraps. Mm-hmm. 'Cause he was like, it doesn't really make sense to get rid of all that stuff and just throw it in the trash. But some restaurants are taking their stuff and they're cooking with it and doing other things. But just having that conversation with people, I think bridges the gaps, and crosses some bridges, and it helps folks to realize, okay, cool, maybe I can do a little bit,
right,
to help out.
Yeah.
If I can't do nothing else, I can throw trash into a bucket instead of a trash can.
Yeah, I feel like talking about sustainability in that natural way is what really leads to that action.
Ivan, I love that you asked the question. That's just so important. Asking, and like you said, you weren't coming at this person trying to convince them. It's starting the conversation. It's trying to better understand and be curious with people about why they're not doing something, why they are doing something. And I just love that you went from not composting to asking other people about composting.
Yeah, it was just it was a natural thing of, it makes you wonder, if I'm on a small scale and they send you out a report that says your household did this much. Okay, cool. So if my household did that much, how much could this bigger household do? Or this business do? Or this big business do? Or this big corporation do? If I can do a small part, I'm sure they can do a bigger part. I'm sure they got more trash than I got. It's just a conversation of having that open door policy with folks of, if we're going to be in the same community, how can we help the community? We got to share it.
Our goal with the podcast is to talk about the barriers, benefits, and motivators to different kinds of sustainable actions, sustainable behavior. And you mentioned in thinking about how different households can relate to composting or really just doing anything. You said, if my household is doing this and it's making this much action or this much impact, how much would this bigger household or this business? In your mind, what comes to mind when you think about the barriers to getting some other households, bigger households or businesses to start composting?
Personal opinions. That's the only barrier. It's the same act. You do your vegetables, you throw them in the trash, you take your trash out to the curb. You do your vegetables, you put them in the green bin, you take the green bin out to the curb. It's the exact same act. You're doing it anyway. You just taking that extra step, says, I'm going to put it in this container instead of this container. You got to just say, I'm going to do this. You know, it's like walking. When you're a baby, you really, really want to walk, but you don't know how. But that first instinct when you realize that you know how to walk, can't nobody tell you nothing. That's why you see. That's why they're always running. You know, you can't tell them nothing. I got my balance. I'm good. It's just once you know, okay, I can do this. It's a simple process. As when I first came in the house, I always called it. It's the stinky box. This is not a stinky box. If you let your trash sit, you cook fish on Sunday, or you cook fish on Wednesday, and the trash get picked up on Tuesday. All that fish that's sitting in that trash can is decomposing. And when you take your trash bag out of the can, you're going to get up that liquid in the bottom of your can that smells. That's decomposing. This is a personal thing of people just choosing and saying, hey, this is something that, even if it doesn't help the earth at all, it's a big hoax. What could it hurt? I mean, seriously, what could it hurt? You know, if you found that it doesn't help nothing, well, it didn't hurt anything any. It doesn't hurt anything to help, you know, and to offer that little bit of extra step of saying, hey, I'm going to do it this way, just a little difference. And like I said, we all grew up different because I don't think any of us in this room grew up composting. No matter how great our parents were. You know, I had the best mother alive. But, you know, I was in 4-H in elementary. We didn't talk about composting. That wasn't a subject. You know, now those kind of things are subjects of sustainability. But when it comes to composting, it's just food breaking down from its natural state, from a non-eating state, back to its natural state. And making more food. You know, if food can make food, what's wrong with that? Even out in public, it makes me aware of what I'm throwing away, where I'm putting it at, what kind of bags am I using with my groceries and things of that nature. It makes you more conscious of what you're doing in your day-to-day life, how much energy you're using, how much water you're using, because you start to wonder, where is that going? What's it being used for? How much of it am I using? You know, how is it benefiting me? Or does it benefit me? And composting for us benefits us, like I say, in our everyday just going about in our cooking and keeping the area clean, making us aware of the food we waste and how we shop. So just buying those things, buying fresh foods. I've gotten back into cooking whole fish, so buying fresh fish and, you know, with those things. It's been fun knowing that, okay, I've done this is taken care of, the bag is full, it's going out. Now that's an extra chore for my son. Since he don't like chores, you know, the bucket, I'll bring it back in, you take it out. But just having those things and making it some kind of fun with the kids, trying to have some kind of way of eating, and then just talking about it, you know, when it comes up in the news, and in a news story, and they speak about it, we speak about it. You know, just have that family conversation about what we're doing as a family and how it affects our community. It can help folks get a little closer, you know, because when you cook, you eat with good friends and family, you know. And it helps foster a conversation of your footprint on the earth. You know, as adults, we did our thing, okay, cool. But as this next generation comes along, they got many footprints to leave. And if we give them bad advice and bad habits to follow, there's going to be some muddy footprints coming through. And as everyone knows, it's very, very hard to clean up dry mud.
Ivan, you mentioned so many different benefits associated with composting, but by composting, either through the program that you're in or just generally as a concept, composting being able to facilitate a local process where your food scraps are turning back into a nutrient-rich compost material that could go in your garden and help with plants that are then growing in that, you know, with that supplement. So many different benefits. I love that you also mentioned the social component of how we can relate to one another and how we can talk to one another related to composting. But kind of flipping it onto the barriers, going back to, I would love to know if there was a turning point or something that you think about related to your kids, for example, your 9-year-old. When did your 9-year-old start being able to use the compost bucket, or was there something that changed that helped them start to be able to do that with you?
With her, what changed with her was I challenged her. I smelled the bucket before, so I knew it didn't stink. But I made a bet with her. And I bet her, I said, if you go and you dump your plate in the bucket, if it stinks, we go to 5 and below tomorrow. You can get $25 worth of whatever you want out of 5 and below. But if it don't stink, you got to clean your room.
That's awesome.
And sadly, she took the bet.
The incentive.
Yeah, she took the bet. And she popped the top, and she was like, it don't stink. I said, no, it doesn't. Because I had put paper towels in earlier. I think 2 days before, I made a big mess. But I cleaned it up, put paper towels in there, okay, cool. And I found myself, it took that smell out of it. Because before, there was some chicken in there and some other stuff, and it smelled kind of bad. Okay, cool. Once she said, okay, it didn't stink. Okay. For dessert, scrape your bowl. Okay. Go scrape my bowl too. Cook it. And it became a natural thing to her. She just popped it, boom, scraped it. Okay, cool. And then she said, if I do it fast, I don't smell it. Maybe that's the trick. Whether it stinks or not, move fast. So our game is who can do it the fastest. Mm-hmm. She's beaten me so far, but who can get to it and put their food in the fastest. So the thing I think for her was for smell. For my oldest son, it was just a thing of the look of it. All this food in together, it's meshed in together. So for him, you can see, close your eyes. So with him, you take top off, close your eyes, scrape it, and keep on moving. You come up with a problem, I'll find a solution somewhere. But with those little barriers, so you find funny ways to get around it, make it fun for them. With me, my barrier was just actually looking at it and reminding myself to go there and do it. It's natural to take my plate and scrape and trash, keep on moving. That's just how I was raised. It's natural. The way I wash dishes, it's how my grandfather washed dishes, not how I grew up. It's natural the way, I wash my chicken. How my grandfather washes chicken. It's natural how you live your life as an adult based on what you witnessed as a kid. And you didn't witness composting. So now as an adult, you got to teach yourself how to compost. And at the same time, teach another adult how to compost. At the same time, teach a child how to compost. Yeah. At the same time, you don't know what you're doing.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
For somebody who know what they're doing a whole lot. And you have no idea what you're doing, but you're doing a whole lot, and you're making a difference. Mm-hmm. And after second, third week of it, you're like, you know what? Okay, all right, okay. It becomes a routine. It becomes an innate thing to put it out. Because you know you filled it up. You did your part. Now let somebody do their part. And in doing your part is so simple. It's so of a routine for you of just scraping. Because you're going to scrape a plate no matter what anyway. And you're going to throw something away in the trash throughout your day in the kitchen. You're throwing something away. Paper towel, a wrapper. You're going to throw it away, so just put it in the compost. Do what you were naturally doing anyway. All depends what the fee is. Mm-hmm. It might chase some folks away because now I'm paying to throw away my trash. Mm-hmm. But what you're sacrificing monetarily, you're gaining environmentally. Mm-hmm. And you can't put a price on what you're going to gain because I don't know anyone who controls the air and the oxygen. Mm-hmm. So you can't put a price on that. Invest it in, something that can help your grandkids or great-grandkids or great-great-grandkids that you won't even see the benefits of. They'll receive the benefits of because you did something back in 2024. Mm-hmm. So, that can be a barrier, but I wouldn't, I would tell folks don't even let that bother you whatsoever. Don't trip on that little bit. You're going to get it back 10 times fold. Mm-hmm.
And you are genuinely making a huge difference on what Nashville's, both what we're throwing away and just the overall impacts. I mean, when we think about throwing away food, when it ends up in the landfill without any air, it ends up creating methane, which is a really harmful and powerful greenhouse gas or earth-warming gas. And food is something that, at least I think those of us in this room probably agree, it's a resource that shouldn't be wasted. There was so much love and energy and time and resources that went into growing it, and then to just throw it away and let it have those harmful impacts is, it almost, when you think about it on a really high level, you think this is so backwards. This is really the opposite of how we treat a resource, or how we should treat a resource.
There's a solution to a lot of our problems that we caused. And composting is one of those solutions.
Yeah, and to bring us around to another stat, that a third of what Nashville residents throw away is food. It's a really staggering statistic, and it takes some shifting of how you're interacting in the kitchen, and this is not to say that it's not a very real problem, that some people just it's either not having grown up with it, it's genuinely not seeing the solution, or not seeing not having the resources for the alternative. I think there's also so much that more of us can be doing in just the little ways, in both being aware that that's how much food is thrown away, and also being curious if there's another way to manage our food, another way for us to treat that material and kind of honor it more than I think we're doing across the board, both in Nashville and across the U.S. This is not a Nashville-specific problem by any means.
No.
We keep up with, or we're pretty on par with many of the other major cities in the U.S., where Ivan, you mentioned having that conversation with the business owner, with the restaurant owner, being able to approach these things as conversations, as questions to be curious about.
I'm mad at myself for not thinking about composting years ago, because I would have got all the restaurants here in Nashville as part of a team, and y'all can compost. I want all y'all scraps.
It's all interconnected, and going back to what we were talking about related to food shows, if people go to their restaurants that they tend to go to and start to see composting, it might make you think, why don't I do that at home? Or what's this? This is a new thing. This is not something I do.
I know that at Urban Green Lab, we always talk about how composting is actually the last step. I know a lot of times that we focus on the food, and we eat it, and then it goes bad and we need to toss it out into the compost. But there's so many things that we can do with food before it even goes into the compost bin. And I have definitely, not wanting to fill up my whole bin every single week, have been trying to, be creative in ways that I can save food that is about to spoil, or to freeze it, or to store it correctly. I felt like there were so many different ways that maybe I can avoid having to compost in the first place. So that's been my journey as well, trying to navigate how we can, keep even the compost bin from filling up. So Ivan, do you have any tips for listeners trying to get members of their household, whether it be friends or family, roommates, on board to start composting?
Have an open conversation. Admit that you don't know anything about it at first. If you admit that, I don't know what I'm talking about either, it might make them feel a bit more comfortable that, hey, you're not bringing something to them that they feel dumb about. Having that initial conversation with them, and being consistent with it, making it part of your everyday habits. Okay, we're going to make sure we throw this in the bin. This goes in the bin. This doesn't. I said having those conversations and being open to suggestions, criticism. Read up on yourself so you know a little bit about what you're talking about. But I like going in it knowing absolutely nothing, and tell them I don't know nothing about this, but this what I got for you.
Right. Normalize not knowing.
Yeah, and let's see how we can do something together. That way, you're learning together. You know, no one feels smarter than the other person. You know, I told you it was dumb. No, we both learning together. And you might learn something you didn't know, share with your partner, and they're like, hey, I already knew that. But did you know this? And you're like, nah, I ain't know that. You just play around with it. Other tips I say would be cook more. If you cook more, fresh foods, that is, you'll see just what you're wasting. But if you cook with fresh fruits and fresh vegetables and that nature, you'll see just what you are wasting. And then you can compare yourself, okay, I wasted this much last week, but I ate this much, but I spent this much. We got to cut down on the wasting, put more into the eating, something. The math ain't adding up. But just those little things, and staying focused on it. Keeping up with your farmer's market and being local. Having a conversation with your neighbors and your friends about it. Neighbor asked me, hey man, what's that green bucket you be sitting outside by your mailbox, you know, on Tuesdays? So I told him what it was. He was like, they'll come to your house? Yeah, man, they'll come to your house, man. They'll come pick it up. All right.
Those are some fantastic tips.
Yes.
And I'll just mention that for those people that, or for some people that may be really interested in composting still, but are not a part of the pilot or are not doing curbside composting, that there are still 4 free drop-off sites across Nashville. So it's, of course, not like your neighbor said, going and getting it from the curb, but Metro has 4 drop-off sites that are convenience centers across town. So definitely encourage, if anyone's been interested in composting from listening to this conversation, to go look those up. And if you want to be like Ivan and start collecting your scraps and keeping them out of your trash, that's one way to do it.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, before there were services for composting, there were ways to make your own compost bins. There's many resources on how to create your own bins, best practices for that if you do want to start your own. And so I would suggest, you know, if there are certain barriers in place where you cannot have those services yet, to try your own in your backyard.
That's a great point. Why even have to get in your car and drive your compost at all if you're able to, if you have a backyard, if you're physically able to manage a compost pile. We also have resources, I think both of us do, right? Urban Green Lab does, as well as Zero Waste Nashville on our websites, about how you can learn how to backyard compost. There are a lot of different ways you can do it. It can seem intimidating, like most things, but it is a lot easier once you get started and get going. But we'll link these resources in the show notes, both for the drop-off composting, for backyard composting, for any ways that we can help any of our listeners get started on your composting journeys.
Thank you, Ivan, for joining us in Sustainable City. I think it has been so awesome to hear your experience.
Thank you, ladies, for having me. It's been a pleasure to be here and have this conversation about trying to change Nashville one step, one trash can, one refrigerator at a time.
Thank you so much, Ivan. We release episodes on the 3rd Tuesday of every month, so be sure to tune in next month wherever you get your podcasts. If you'd like to reach out to us, if you have something to share, some inspiring story, some feedback you have for us about this episode or Sustainable in the City in general, you can reach us at sitcnashville@gmail.com. And we look forward to having you on next month.
Thanks for tuning in to Sustainable in the City. Sustainable in the City is produced by Urban Green Lab and Zero Waste Nashville, a division of the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County, with recording assistance provided by the Nashville Public Library's Studio NPL team. Our theme song is produced by Draped Apes. Subscribe in all the places you listen to podcasts. To learn how to reduce your waste, find Zero Waste Nashville online at zerowaste.nashville.gov. For more tips on how to live sustainably, follow Urban Green Lab on social media at Urban Green Lab or online at urbangreenlab.org. Join us next time for more stories about small sustainable actions that are making a big impact on Nashville.